Welcome to NFL Daily, where we're getting back together for more than one weekend. We got a whole season to get through. I'm Gregg Rosenthal. I am with my friend Nick Shook for the first time on a Sunday evening this preseason / training camp window. We are going around the entire AFC today. Nick, I'm excited to do it with you, and I'm excited that you got your power back in the Cleveland area.
Yeah, it's nice to have my power on. A little touch and go there for a few hours today, but we're happy to be back. We're happy to be what appears to be stable, and we're ready to get into some football news.
I mean, let's get it together. Cleveland Power Grid, First Entergy. Like, you're not giving America, getting downgraded to second world country a good name.
There's a reason they lost the naming rights to the Browns Stadium.
Ooh. We will get to the Browns. We will get to every AFC team. Like I mentioned, that's going to be the drill the next 2 Sundays. We're going to split up the AFC and NFC so you feel like you know the entire league. We'll do the NFC takeaways on Tuesday this week because we're going to Rams camp on Monday. So let's get it going. And let's start with the AFC West. I'll start here, Shook, because we got a big contract on Sunday. And Rashawn Slater, the left tackle who was holding out without saying he was holding out, just had a minor injury that's suddenly going to be fixed now that he signed a 4-year, $114 million extension, $92 million guaranteed. Dang, man. Tackle money is now turning into quarterback money. That is the most guaranteed money ever, and it's basically because he's the next up. He was an all-pro as a rookie and had a couple years where he wasn't as healthy but played excellent a year ago. 6th lowest pressure rate in the entire NFL, 7th lowest sack rate. Those are both per next-gen stats. And it is a reminder, even though the weapons haven't been great around Herbert, you got to feel pretty great about the coaching and the left tackle right now.
Yeah, you definitely have to. I hope that they throw the ball more and take advantage of having a solid left tackle that's worth that kind of money. I think we've talked about this before. It seems as though their identity is going to be a run-first team. They lose Mike Williams, so that's one less option at receiver. But it all starts in the trenches. And any time an offensive lineman who's worth that type of money gets paid, warms my heart, because that means that team is focused on investing in the right places. We don't have to watch Justin Herbert deal with what C.J. Stroud dealt with last season with the Texans. So it's always a good place to start, and it's money that's well-deserved, and also money that's moving him right up the top of the old standings among tackles.
Yeah, it's tacked on to his 5th-year option, so it depends on how you measure it, but in terms of the extension, it's over 28 a year, which is crazy. And back in the day, the Chargers used to be thought of similarly to how we talk about the Bengals now. There was always these contract issues. I mean, one of the reasons why Phillip Rivers had to wait an extra couple years to play because of Drew Brees was because of contract issues, like him holding out of training camp. So it's good. They've taken care of their business lately. And, yeah, their tackles are set for a while. Maybe the best group in the league, certainly right up there with Joe Alt at right tackle. He had been cross-training at left tackle while Slater was out, but now Slater will get back in. And you mentioned Mike Williams being gone, and I am buying into, as we get into the notes for every team, I am buying a little bit into the Quentin Johnston hype, just like a little. I'm opening up the possibility in my mind because he's still a young player. I've never really believed in him, but day after day, Daniel Popper, who does a great job for The Athletic, is saying, this has been his camp. And remember, they've been in camp much longer than every other team. They've been in pads now for 4 or 5 days and stacking day after day after day. He has kind of been the very solid number 2, clearly going to be their X, having a great camp, and they're going to need him because after that it seems like a total question mark in terms of who's getting snaps. But I'm willing to buy in that a first-round pick with some pedigree can get better in year 3. Are you buying it all?
Well, they have Ladd McConkey, which always makes me feel a little bit better.
Right, he's the clear one and is supposedly uncoverable every day.
Well, yeah, he's like a much better... Yeah, he's good. He's very good. I was going to compare him to a player that I didn't think deserved being compared to him. I'm kind of on board with what you're saying because Quentin Johnston's first year was so bad that it felt like last year was more of what you would expect to see from a rookie receiver. Like he did look like he started to get his feet underneath him. So if there's going to be that typical year 2 breakout or year 2 leap forward, remember the making the leap days, then year 3 is going to be it for Quentin Johnston. I saw enough in small spurts to make me think that it's within him. It's just a matter of consistency and dependability, and that remains to be seen.
Yeah, and we're going to go over stories that aren't headline news, but it's one of my favorite things about this time of year is sifting through all the podcasts and the Twitter and Blue Sky and especially the written reports of like what we think matters, what doesn't. And one other thing that's been noticeable among the receivers there is like no one is really stepping up. Trey Harris, the rookie second-round pick, has had a pretty quiet start to camp and has kind of been buried in terms of the rotation. Keandre Lambert-Smith, who was a day 3 pick, has flashed maybe a little bit more. Darius Davis, who's a return guy. They've actually had Jalen Reagor with their first team most of the time, so it's not great. They kind of need Johnston to be that guy, and we'll see if Trey Harris picks it up, but that's something to watch, maybe a little bit of a slow start. Another rookie, though, there. They have Aronde Gadsden Jr. at tight end. Just love the name, second-generation player, who's been making some plays, and there's an opportunity for him to get some snaps, so that's something to watch. Junior Colson has been stuck on the second team. We've just been tracking that situation. And then I'll wrap the Chargers just with Najee Harris, still on the NFI list. They told us it's not a big deal. The eye is not an issue. He is out there watching practice, but the more time he misses, I mean, maybe it's not that huge of a deal, but he has not practiced yet in I think, 10 training camp practices. So just something to watch.
And I would be more concerned about this if they started. Well, I guess maybe I should be less concerned about it if they started with most of the other teams, considering they've been in camp longer, but also they have a longer runway. So maybe they feel like it's not really worth pushing right now because they have a longer runway.
Fair.
It is a strange issue. Like, this is not something that affects his feet or his arms, his hands, his quads, nothing. It's his eye. So
the man can't see right now.
Yeah, I know.
It's a little worrisome.
You hope that comes together. Yeah, you hope it comes together.
Okay. I know I'm going to have to pick up the pace if we're doing all these teams. I thought one of the other biggest stories of this entire week, it's one of the reasons I wanted to do AFC West first, was Josh Simmons. Josh Simmons, who fell to number 32 in the draft, or number 31 rather, has been the first team left tackle all week. Actually, it was 32 because the Chiefs traded down. I forgot about that weird one-pick swap. He was first team left tackle all week, and their big free agent signing, Jalen Moore, is over at right tackle. Now, that was, partly we thought because Juwan Taylor is out. He's their normal right tackle, one of the highest paid players at his position in the league. He's been out. But when he returned Sunday, those two guys were battling and splitting at right tackle, Jalen Moore and Juwan Taylor. Meanwhile, the rookie is staying over there at left tackle. And this is one of those situations where it feels, and we'll see, but like if every team knew this guy was healthy enough to start training camp for the defending world champions at left tackle in his rookie season, like he should be a New Orleans Saint, or he should have gotten taken much earlier. And it could be a great situation for the Chiefs where they have 3 really good options for 2 spots. It's probably Simmons at left tackle, and I don't think they're going to bench Juwan Taylor. So it's probably Jalen Moore sliding in at left guard, and suddenly you're upgrading a bunch of spots, but you also have a really good swing tackle because you can't count on these guys to stay healthy. They'll all probably play. No matter what, I just feel way better about the Chiefs' offensive line than I did on that February Sunday where I saw Patrick Mahomes getting, railroaded.
Yeah, I mean, when you say 3 really good options, I was like, is Juwan Taylor a really good option? Maybe not at the money he's making, but we've talked about that already. And then you also have other options at guard with Kingsley Suamataia, who was a swing and miss at tackle last year. You have Mike Caliendo also involved in that competition as well. So it feels kind of like when the Eagles keep drafting Georgia players and drafting guys of value, in spots where you're like, how do we let them keep getting away with this? Except it's the Chiefs. Except last year they swung and missed. So it feels like redemption. Obviously, it's on paper at this point. But you're right. If people knew that Simmons was healthy, because we had talked about this right after the combine or right after the draft, like, what's the word on him? Well, he got hurt last year, so he's kind of an unknown. If they realized he was as healthy as he is now, because he's turning heads. Like today, for example, that was one of my Nuggets and the back together weekend highlights from Sunday, which was Mike Dana talking highly of Josh Simmons, saying he's a hell of an athlete he's got a bright future, sky's the limit for him. And I've heard this over and over again from a number of different people, even on the New Heights podcast. Jason and Travis Kelce were talking about him then too. So man, talk about a big value get if he can stay healthy and be on the field and really answer a major question for them going into this year. So definitely something to keep track of because, like you said, it's fascinating.
Yeah, I did a podcast with Mina Kimes earlier this offseason about just players that can kind of make or break a team's season, and if Josh Simmons is like a solid rookie left tackle even, or even better than that, I look at them a little differently. A couple other little notes from the Chiefs from this week. They're still just honking about, we got to hit the longer passes. That's all they ever talk about. But for now, their top receivers are healthy. Rashee Rice is practicing. Mahomes really bigging up Xavier Worthy. Tyquan Thornton is playing a decent amount with their first team, which seems really crazy to me. Eddie Royals, their rookie, also reportedly had a good first week. Royals is getting a chance with the first team there too as well, because they're trying to figure out who's going to have that spot when Rashee Rice is presumably suspended. And then, another draft pick I'm keeping an eye on, a big guy in the middle, Omar Norman Lott, getting some first team reps. Christian Fulton, their cornerback pickup, has been out most of this week. Let's go to the Broncos. Probably the number one thing that stuck out to me, Shook, was just Dre Greenlaw is out there. I had to dig to find this one. I'm working hard. I'm going into the DVNR archives and stuff, what's up with Dre Greenlaw, because I haven't heard anything. But he's out there, and they said he's moving well, and that's a great item to hear after the injuries that he had in the offseason. Sometimes those offseason injuries are a harbinger of total doom, and sometimes they don't really matter. And so that's great news for them. Both him and Talanea Hufanga, the two former 49ers players, are out there and they are practicing. They did have an injury. Drew Sanders, who was coming back from an Achilles, was carted off on Saturday. We'll have to find out with him, but he's like a depth linebacker. I feel great about this defense. It just looks great on paper, Nick.
Yeah, that was the point I was just going to make, is on paper, starting 11 looks really strong. If you go all the way from the front to the back, I love Zach Allen. I've loved him since he was a Cardinal. You know what you get in John Franklin Myers. This linebacking core, with a 3-4 defense. Whew. Nick Bonito had a great year last year. You know what you have in Alex Singleton if Greenlaw's healthy, and you know what you have in Jonathan Cooper. And then the secondary, too. I love this entire group. If they're all healthy and can hit week 1 healthy like this, watch out. We could, maybe a little hyperbolic, but we could be looking at a defense that reminds some Broncos fans of the no-fly zone defense.
I think they could be the best defense in the league. That was a historic defense. That would be next level for this, but I think they're in the short list for the best defense in the league. Evan Ingram had a comment that was funny to me. He said when he was with the Jaguars, he was always the first guy in the building, and it was easy. But it's not easy to be the first guy in the building with the Broncos. There's just a lot more hard workers there.
No, I thought it was like the work itself is harder. Good. That means people are showing up.
Well, also just sometimes guys reveal a lot with a little. That says something to me about the Jaguars. I know it's trying to, it's kind of showy first guy at the building, but I think he's saying this is a different group. And who knows, maybe the culture's changed in Jacksonville. Now, I noticed Quinn Miners, their all-pro guard, cut his dreadlocks. So shout out to Quinn Miners.
Yeah, you know what he said? He said people were pulling them off during games.
Oh, that's not good.
That doesn't feel good, I'm sure. I can't speak to that. As you can see if you're watching on YouTube, I have no hair, but I would imagine it doesn't feel good.
If you are watching, by the way, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and tell me what you think of these new NFL Network Tommy Bahama polos that I'm trying to. Shout out to Miners, too. I'd have to do some research. Has to be one of the greatest white players ever with dreadlocks. I don't know who else would be on the list, but he made an all-pro
small
team.
Sample size.
Yeah, it's not a lot of people. Bo Nix talked to the media and said that him and Drew Brees spent time together for a couple days. Bo Nix is on his way to proving a lot of people like me wrong. I do love that stuff when the guy hangs out with the old guy that used to have the coach. We'll see if it works. Let's wrap up the AFC West with the Raiders. Little fallout from that Kristen Wilkins release, which we touched on Friday's show. Josina Anderson on her website reported that there was an incident with a teammate that might have contributed to him being cut. It's interesting because Kristen Wilkins in Miami was a man who people loved, people swore by, but also would get in fights on the field and occasionally in practice, he was that guy. So that might have contributed to it. It really sounds like there's a legal battle coming between the Raiders and Wilkins in terms of money. Don't need to go deep on that there. I didn't have a lot of huge headlines from Raiders camp. I don't know if you do. I did like hearing Geno talk about Brock Bowers just saying I feel bad every time I don't get Brock Bowers the ball. That I cannot give him the ball enough. So I think he's getting taken in the second round of fantasy drafts, and I'm all for that. I don't think you can take him too high. What?
Yeah, you were leading the charge for Brock Bowers pretty early. We knew what he was coming out of Georgia, and I think he exceeded every expectation, which they were already very high when he came to the Raiders as a rookie. So yeah, I mean, tight end second round fantasy draft is pretty high. This is not a fantasy podcast, but that is pretty high. But if he's going to see the amount of targets he saw last year, why the hell not, especially if Geno's talking about him like this?
Right. I think it's going to go up. Vinny Bonsignori, who's a good reporter there, said it's been pretty clear that there's a priority to get Michael Mayer involved. So he's the second tight end there, but he really might be the second or third receiver. Because the report out of practice from our friend Tashawn Reed in The Athletic is it's Jakobi Meyers, great chemistry with Geno, and then who knows? Like, it's a fall
That was the receiving core last year.
Right, but you drafted a couple guys. Right now, he was saying Jack Besh is not really standing out. He's trying to find a spot. Trey Tucker, and they have easy matchups too when they're out there. So I think if you're thinking about their weapons, it's probably Bowers 1 by a lot, Jakobi Meyers 2 by a decent amount, and then Michael Mayer and Ashton Jenney. And actually, that sounds like a good offense, but in terms of targets, you just might not see another wide receiver getting a ton of guys. At cornerback, by the way, Eric Stokes and Darian Porter have mostly been with the ones. Darian Porter is a rookie, so they're going to throw those guys out there. Jacorian Bennett and DeCamerion Richardson are out there with the twos. Let's take a quick, relatively early break and go to the break actually listening to Maxx Crosby, because if someone just talks nicely about Geno Smith with their shirt off and are sitting right next to our friend Maurice Jones-Drew, who we had a great fish lunch in Tokyo with, then we're just going to play it on the show. This is Maxx Crosby on NFL Network. We'll be back after the break.
You know, we have a lot of guys that have been doubted throughout their careers, and Geno is one of them. You know what I mean? He's a guy that carries a big chip on his shoulder, and you see it with the way he approaches every single day. We're going to get after it. We're going to compete. You know, me and Geno have our back and forth sometimes today. You know, back and forth, getting to it, and he doesn't let it bring him down. He continues to keep coming back and throwing punches back, and that's what you want in your quarterback. You know what I mean? It's such an important position, and you need somebody that could do it at a high level, not just on the field as a player, but also from a leadership perspective. And I think he definitely brings that every day.
Back on NFL Daily, and we are going to hit some notes from the AFC North, and we're going to actually take like a little halftime break and just update you on like the biggest NFC news. I feel like we has to get into the show before we dive deep in terms of the notes on Tuesday's show. Shooky, why don't you get us going with these North teams, and let's start. You choose where to start, wherever you want to start, Brett.
Well, you know what? We're going to start in Pittsburgh because Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Latrobe, for those who are not familiar, but those who are locals say Latrobe.
Really?
St. Vincent College, yes.
Didn't know that.
It's
I'm
a
definitely
thing.
not local.
Yeah. The more you know. St. Vincent College has long been home to the Steelers, and Aaron Rodgers was not expecting it to be as hot as it is, but he is settling in with the Steelers. He also, this is just like, not to start with a quote, but I'm starting with a quote. He reacted to Terry Bradshaw telling him to go chew on some bark in California by saying, "I'd love to get to know Terry on a deeper level if he's open to it. Maybe we can go chew some bark," or whatever the hell he's talking about, which I thought was funny. But on the field, Broderick Jones has got a lower body injury. It's day to day. Kind of worrisome for left tackle, but it's still very early in camp. And back to Rodgers, the Steelers secondary, they are challenging him. Jalen Ramsey, new acquisition, recent acquisition. He gets a pick over the guy who was involved in that trade, his former teammate in Miami, Geno Smith. He's been making plays there. So the vibe that I'm getting from this Steelers camp so far is that all of these moves that they made in the offseason seem to be coming together. And more than anything, that defense is looking really good in the secondary, and they're causing some issues for Rodgers and the other quarterbacks. So this is a defense that didn't perform up to their standard last year or in recent years. I would be really interested this season to see if they bounce back and that becomes the backbone of them, especially with what they did offensively.
Yeah, it's always a catch-22. If a defense is dominating, are you exciting that they look good, or does the offense just look bad? Also, defense tends to be ahead this time of training camp. Also, a caveat for everything here. This last week, other than the Lions and the Chargers, was the ramp-up period. So it's kind of juiced up OTA minicamp, not quote-unquote real football practices. Everyone's putting the pads on Monday around the league. And so we don't want to draw huge conclusions. It's just fun to get some of the nuggets. And you can with like where players are playing. And for instance, Roman Wilson has consistently been their wide receiver too. When they have two receivers on the field, Roman Wilson is the two next to DK. So that's something that you can take a big takeaway from that. I'm not shocked, but also that's like, okay, that confirmed maybe what we thought. Calvin Austin has kind of been the slot. You mentioned, Rodgers and Ramsey. It sounds like 2 out of 3 of Rodgers' days were pretty rough. And that Ramsey, for the most part, is like in the nickel when it's, in the slot when they're playing nickel defense. And then when you only have 4 defensive backs on the field, which doesn't happen that often in 2025 anyways, but he's playing a little safety. So, they're going to make sure they find a way to keep him on the field. And that's a change for him in terms of what he's done throughout his career. Let's get to your Brownies. Come on.
All right. Well, we all know what they're talking about in Berea, which is the quarterback situation. There is some news that has become apparent. Kenny Pickett, dealing with a hamstring injury, is expected to miss multiple practices. That was according to Mary Kay Cabot of Cleveland.com. A reevaluation set for sometime next week. Anytime you hear anybody suffering a hamstring issue in camp, you get a little concerned because those injuries can pop back up later. They have to be treated with extra caution because of the likelihood that they can be aggravated, which, by the way, aggravated, not re-aggravated. So what I think this does is actually makes this quarterback competition even more interesting because the distribution of reps has been the talk of the town through the first 4 days or so of camp. How are they splitting them? And mostly it's been Pickett getting the most, Dylan Gabriel right behind him or even with him, Shedeur slightly behind them, and then Flacco in last place, which makes sense. But if you look at it with Pickett on the sideline, now it becomes a 2-rookie competition because you know what you have in Joe Flacco. So I think that's going to be really intriguing this week, especially as they put the pads on who is going to be better, who's going to be worse. Opposite, you just talked about when an offense is struggling, is it because the defense is good or because the offense is just bad or needs to get there? Like you said, defense is usually ahead. The Browns' defense is very much ahead of the Browns' offense so far, which is to be expected with this sort of quarterback competition that's going on right now. Andrew Berry said that he could see a scenario in which they keep all 4, which is interesting because you're sacrificing a roster spot somewhere else in order to keep all 4. Again, it's early, though, so we'll see. And you know what? Because I have to give a shout out to my Kent State Golden Flashes. Shedeur Sanders threw a touchdown pass to a former Golden Flash, Luke Fleury, who's in camp with the Browns, and that just makes me happy.
I mean, does he have a chance to make the team?
No.
Practice squad? No. Okay.
No, probably not.
Yeah, Shedeur's been basically with a third team until Saturday, and then reportedly had a few good throws. Supposedly the offense has just gotten overwhelmed. So I reached out to our friend Andrew Siciliano, who's there every day. He's the Browns radio voice, and he's there covering training camp. And yeah, he said that same thing. Defense has been ahead. The defensive line has a chance to be really good. Like Mason Graham, the top 10 pick, has showed up there, and he's ready to prove me wrong, who doubted his pick and has had a nice week. But I think it did get a little lost in the shuffle. We might have mentioned it briefly, but Jordan Hicks retired, which you don't think is a huge deal. He's kind of a journeyman, but he started most of their season last year. And then if you think about the difference, they lost Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, this season because of injury, and then Jordan Hicks retires. That was supposed to be your 2 starting inside linebackers, so now you lose them both. And maybe Carson Schwechender, who is like the rookie second-round pick, top of the second round, like who hasn't played that much, is like has the green dot on offense. So, that could be a lot on him. Jerome Ford hasn't been out there, Andrew mentioned as well, but said Dylan Sampson, the rookies, looked pretty good. But overall, the vibe, I buy Andrew Berry, by the way, that you could keep 4 quarterbacks. I mean, let's not be too precious about a roster spot for the Browns. If they want to keep Pickett in Flacco, that's fine. I think it's obvious they're going to keep the 2 rookies. They're not going to try to clear them through waivers. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. But I think the green dot thing is what actually attracted my attention there. They did bring in Jerome Baker in the offseason. He's a local kid. Okay. So I could see that being a possibility for them. But yeah, it's kind of weird with this group. Now, I want to say I was on the Mason Graham train from the beginning. So if he does ball out, and again, this is no pads. Like, we can't really effectively judge a lot of the interior play right now without pads. Once those come on, if he starts to make a difference, I'm going to V victory lap in that.
Well, some of the dumbest victory laps ever are from people like myself or whoever, and I did learn this. Don't take any victory laps in August. None of it. You just can't. The games haven't actually started.
I don't know. No, my running shoes are on. I don't know.
Even Josh Simmons, which it seems like it's going great. It's like, yeah, but what if he gets out there when it actually matters and he stinks? Who knows? All right, let's get to the Ravens.
Okay. All right, Ravens. Not actually a lot of buzz out of that camp right now, but Jair Alexander went on record earlier this week when asked about how he's adjusted to being in Baltimore over the last month or so since he signed with the Ravens. He said he is in heaven. He loves it. Like literally said, I am in heaven. The culture there is fitting him. He is excited to play a key part in a defense that he thinks will be an important part of this team. This team, I mean, they're loaded on both sides of the ball. So thinking that, you know, the defense can outpace the offense that was incredibly productive last year is kind of crazy. But on paper, they looked really good. They were off today, Sunday, but the Tez Walker hype train starting to build. And we heard this from them earlier, I think in OTAs, that they felt like he was going to make a big stride in year 2. And he's made some nice plays. He caught a 30-yard pass over the middle from Lamar Jackson on Saturday, and that was one of at least 6 catches on Saturday. So he's making the most of his opportunities in his second training camp. And finally, Greg, we talked about a kicker competition kind of, you know, tongue-in-cheek last time. Tyler Loop is on fire. 23 of 23 so far. He owns that job.
I love that you're hitting me with all these items I have had no idea about. That job's that's over. Loop's locked it down. I mean, you draft a kicker to replace Justin Tucker. He's going to have a terrible training camp to not get that job, but it sounds like it's the opposite. Maybe he'll be the next Justin Tucker. You mentioned Jair. I actually had flagged a different quote. He was supposedly playing really well, making some good pass breakups on his first day, and he thought Lamar was trying him a little bit.
Oh, Lamar, yeah, he threw a back shoulder. He tried to throw a back shoulder on me with D-Hop, so I had to give him a little jazz about that. I said, "Come on, man. I know it's my first day, but man, it's still me. You know what I mean? It's still me." So, but it's always fun, man. We can joke like that.
Man, they are deeper because there was a quote, and I know it's July, but Kyle Hamilton saying he thinks Nate Wiggins, who supposedly had a really great first week, could be one of the best cornerbacks in the league. That he's had his hands all over footballs in practice. So, man, that 1-2-3, if Jair Alexander can stay healthy at cornerback, is really good. And if Tez Walker, if they're just a little deeper, even at wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, I don't know how much to fall for it, but making a lot of sideline type of catches. Can he have a role as a third, fourth receiver type of guy? It's a really fascinating team. I'm not saying this is their last chance because it's the Ravens. They're always successful, but they do have a ton of free agents this season. So there will be a lot of turnover after this year. They have Kyle Van Noy, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Tyler Linderbaum, Travis Jones, and Odafe Owe. Those were the ones quickly I came up with who are free agents with just a ton of starters. So it's go time for the Ravens, even though so many of their great players are young. Let's get to the Bengals to wrap up the AFC North.
All right, Cincinnati. What do we want to know about Cincinnati? Well, Shamar Stewart's finally signed. The great, I don't know, Skyline Chili Nightmare is over. They got their first round pick in the building, which is great, and he didn't, really get much out of it, like you said earlier. So that's handled. That's done with. He spoke very loftily about his goals and everything, that he wants to, threaten Alden Smith's rookie record of sacks and everything else, and he was the last guy to really do it. He's got to get his feet underneath him, but he did get on the practice field, which is good. Lucas Patrick, the guard, is wearing a sleeve on his calf after exiting practice on Friday. He did not practice on Sunday, so a little bit of concern because we know that the instability in the offensive line has been a running issue for the Bengals over the last few years. And we'll go back to kickers, Greg, because I know you love kickers. Evan McPherson, perfect 18 for 18. The guy who had an incredible rookie season, hit some bumps in the road recently, starting off on the right foot, pun unintended, in 2025.
Sneaky big story for them. I saw that featured a little bit. I think that was The Athletic. He was one of the best kickers in the league his first couple seasons and really had a downturn, and now has changed his motion, hasn't missed a kick. That would be big for them. And yeah, maybe it's because Lucas Patrick has been out partly, but I think they've just been giving Dylan Fairchild, who's a rookie guard, all the snaps with the starters. Jermaine Burton, we'll see, but so far everything has been really positive. Second-year player, very talented, who just had a disastrous rookie season. They wanted him to have a big role, but he's very talented, and so he's started to make some consistent noise. We'll see if that keeps up. And I heard Shamar Stewart talking about his agent, that's who I want with me in the foxhole, guys who will fight for me. But in the end, this whole holdout, it just seems stupid from both ends. All he got out of it was they gave him more money out of his signing bonus now instead of it being delayed till December. He didn't really get anything in particular out of it, so it just seems
It sounded like and I think he said both sides agreed that he needed to be on the field. Like, let's end this madness. So
it was almost like the Bengals gave him something just very small, just to get him back without actually breaking their principles. So they more or less got their way. Before we get to the AFC East, just some quick hitters from the NFC that if you're listening to this show, the idea is we want you updated on everything. It really hasn't been like a crazy huge news week, I feel like, around the NFL, and that's good because a lot of times huge news at this time of year are injuries. Unfortunately, there were a few. Cardinals lost the starting cornerback, Starling Thomas, not a household name, but it's literally the second starting cornerback they've lost for the season, which is terrible luck. Sean Murphy-Bunting is their nickelback. Starling Thomas was supposed to be outside. He is out with a torn ACL for the season. Terry McLaurin returned to training camp or showed up to training camp on Sunday, but he's not practicing. They're saying he's out with an ankle injury, so the holdout is out, but the hold-in is in. Matthew Stafford is going to be out another week. Disappointed to hear that because we were hoping to maybe see him at Rams practice on Monday, but more time for Jimmy G. Starting to get a little concerned that a 37-year-old can't practice for a week and a half with a back injury, and that the hope is that he's ready for week one. That's a little concerning. Eli Apple is back in the league, and a couple contracts for veterans. Jake Ferguson got a big one. Josh Metellus in Minnesota. That is your NFC update. I don't know if anything strikes you as particularly interesting there, Sean.
Well, I liked how the Cardinals looked going into this camp in terms of depth. That depth is going to be tested, and it's going to be young guys very quickly. Like the pick of Will Johnson. Will Johnson would have been a first-round pick out of Michigan if he hadn't gotten hurt last year. And I loved that selection when they made it. He's going to be asked to do a lot, I think, very quickly for them. And so it's going to be an early test of him as well. And they have other young guys in that group, including Will Johnson's collegiate rival, Ohio State's Denzel Burke, a guy who flashed as a freshman, never really got any better. We'll see. But suddenly the younger guys that you thought, well, maybe they'll compete for a roster spot and play special teams, they're going to be asked to do a little bit more now.
I should have spelled out Eli Apple signed with the 49ers, so a depth piece there. And it's interesting they signed Jake Ferguson, the Cowboys, coming off a bad season and with Micah Parsons' contract just hanging in the wind.
That's getting uglier by the day, by the way, because that's not going
They just
away.
do things differently. But you know what? I actually think they're buying low on Jake Ferguson, that it's going to be a team-friendly deal in the end, and they believe in him as a player despite a down season. So ultimately, I think that was a smart move for them. And Metellus, the safety for the Vikings, just one of the most unique players in the league. It's cool to see him get rewarded. All right, the AFC East. Joey Bosa, back at practice. And I thought it was interesting. They kept Greg Rousseau on his normal side. Like, he had been moving around depending on who had been coming in for them over the last few years, like Von Miller. He's got his side. Bosa's got to kind of work around him. Bosa can play either side. But he is back. He's practicing. So that is good early news for the Bills. They have been starting Tre'Davious White so far over Maxwell Hairston, their first-round pick. So that's a battle that I will be watching to see if Hairston takes over. And unfortunately, Hairston was involved in a play on Sunday, Shook, where it looked like he might have been a little over-aggressive. And Tyrell Shavers, who had a real good chance, I think, to make this team, appeared to have a bad injury, an ankle injury, after Hairston kind of took him out by the ankle in a contested play. And they've had a few injuries at that position at the back end of the wide receiver roster. Nothing to be too panicked about, but Elijah Moore, Curtis Samuel, and Tyrell Shavers all injured. Shavers might be the only one that's really serious, but just some of the Bills' depth. Not really their top three guys, though, so it's not something that's going to panic Bills fans, but, man, you hate to see, obviously, an injury like that to anyone, especially like a young player trying to start his career.
Yeah, I agree with that, but really I'm more concerned about Curtis Samuel, even if it's not serious, just because I think he cracks that top three in some situations. And, I mean, unless you have more confidence in Joshua Palmer, which, that's up to you.
The money says he's going to play. The money says Josh Palmer is going to he's going to be the two alongside Keon Coleman.
I don't know if I buy that, but all right, we'll take it for what it's worth. I think that Samuel might bring a little bit more to the table. So you hope that those guys get back, but nothing that's really overly concerning across the board here. I do like the idea of Tre'Davious White coming back and making a difference, but it is camp. It's still early. And, we mentioned this about the line. I thought about this with the Ravens too, but like Nate Wiggins and his, slight frame and everything else. When the pads come on at defensive back too, that really tells you where guys stand because the physicality gets involved. Tre'Davious White is not the youngest guy anymore. Does he still have the speed and agility to keep up with guys? Because that was an issue in recent years. So it's going to be a test of his.
Fair. And Maxwell Hairston, is he a guy that can tackle in the open field? That's a smaller cornerback. We will see. A couple other little items there. I noticed Joe Basalia of The Athletic said there really is a quarterback two battle there, and he thought Mike White's looked better than Mitch Trubisky. So could be someone that plays this year for the Bills. Bills fans hope that will only happen in Week 18 because they've clinched a bye or something like that. Dawson Knox, by the way, who was injured to start camp, their tight end was activated. The good news out of Jets camp, and I could not find a ton of Jets news, which is to the credit of Aaron Glenn, rather, that he's kind of having a no-drama, news-free camp for the most part. But Justin Fields, already back to 7-on-7s and positional drills. That toe injury really proved to be nothing. And it supposedly looked pretty good in camp early. So, I'm not worried about just, the fact that Justin Fields is already back on the field. When I said that injury, it started making me wonder if the Jets' vibes are just going to overtake Aaron Glenn. The fact that Fields immediately was back on the field, it's maybe a flip of it. It's no, these aren't the same old Jets.
Yeah, I feel like I've bought, for as much stock as you've bought in the Raiders this offseason, I've bought just as much with the Jets because they have an adult in the room in Aaron Glenn, finally. This feels like a professional organization, at least from the outside at this point in the year. It's still early. I'm not buying in that much yet, but it just feels like they are changing their culture and the vibe around them. And yeah, a dislocated toe and coming back there, very quickly for Justin Fields isn't necessarily an example of it. But I'm telling you, man, this is a team that people need to keep an eye on. Not necessarily because they're absolutely loaded or that they should have Super Bowl aspirations, but I do think they're going to be better than most people think. And it starts with Aaron Glenn, and these are the examples of why.
Totally agree with you. They're making Breece Hall earn that running back spot. I think Braylon Allen is going to be featured, and Breece Hall knows he's not getting a contract. That was interesting. Connor Hughes, who covers them for SNY, he said something that he thought Will McDonald is probably having the best summer of anyone on defense. So that would be really big for them if they can get a more consistent pass rush out of Will McDonald, who I know has put up sack totals, but as an every down consistent difference maker, maybe hasn't been that dude. They're looking for receivers to step up. It sounds like early Malachi Corley, who was a pretty high pick last year, has not been that guy. So that's someone to watch. And then just because I was unaware of this fact before Sunday, there are two gentlemen by the name of Harrison Mevis and Caden Davis who are competing to be the Jets kicker this year. Harrison Mevis and Caden Davis. So just the more you know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I didn't know either of those guys existed.
Right. Me neither. And sometimes when you have a kicker battle like that, they're also battling against whoever gets cut as a veteran. For instance, like a Nick Folk, I can remember a couple years ago when the Patriots cut him, immediately got snapped up and took over a job. So those guys could always take your job, but I'm Team Mevis. I'm Team Mevis.
Okay, all right, and I'm sure it's just because you like his last name better. I don't know, but it's also like the long snapper battle that's going on in Cincinnati right now. Two guys by the name of Cal Adamitis and Will Wagner. There you go.
Wow, you went deep. Let's go to the Patriots. Biggest story for them this week, to me, is that Stephon Diggs is just fully out there taking every snap. Kind of shocking. Not just that he's not on PUP, but that he's taking every team rep and everything. And, I follow all the Patriots beat reporters. It's a really good beat crew. Taylor Kyles is one of the best doing it right now. And to me, he says the wide receiver battle, which seems so wide open, doesn't seem that controversial. Unless it changes, he really sees the X position as Kayshon Boutte right now as the starter, and Kyle Williams is behind him. But that one's kind of up for grabs. The Z position is kind of clearly Stephon Diggs, and Kendrick Bourne, who has a history with Josh McDaniels and I think is going to make this team, is behind him. And then in the slot, it's Demario Douglas, and it's this undrafted kid, Efton Chisholm. And who knows if Jalen Polk makes this team? I would, even though he was a second-round pick a year ago, my guess is he gets traded for like a late-round pick swap. He has not even been out on the field practicing because he hasn't been healthy, so he has to get into that mix. Maybe they try to like sneak that kid Chisholm through waivers or whatever it is, but that's the Patriots wide receiver update. And at this point, I'd be surprised if Demario Douglas and Stephon Diggs are not like their top two receivers, at least to start the season. Those are the guys they're going to be counting on and hoping the best for. It's not the best group.
Yeah, I believe Taylor Kyles is an NFL media alum as well, so shout out to Taylor. But I have to point out the fact that a guy who is out right now, is there room for him on this roster if it shakes out the way you just described it, which is the barefoot wonder himself, Mack Hollins?
Forgot about Mack Hollins somewhat, yes, because they gave him like $3.5 million guaranteed, and they're just going to have to find a spot. And so he's also been a good special teamer. He's coming off a good year. You can keep 6 receivers. Plenty of teams do. You certainly, 7 is stretching it. It might be a situation, if everyone's healthy, where both Polk and a guy like Kendrick Bourne could go in like a very low-level trade, though, at the end of camp.
Yeah,
if everyone
Jets could use one.
is healthy. To me, Kayshon Boutte, like, they like his lot. Like, it's funny because they got these guys who are all about the same level. From that list, they actually might have like the most interesting wide receiver cuts of any team in the league, and yet they don't have. But it's because like they don't really have a good wide receiver group, but they are very deep. So that was a smart way to
There's
attack.
potential there. This is nothing to do with
potential.
your Patriots homerism. It's the fact that there's potential there, and it's more than a lot of teams can say.
In terms of depth, yes, but I would still put them bottom 5 overall. One thing I noticed watching, the camp reports there, it's like they're incredibly thin at the tackle position. Their 7th round pick, Michael Bryant, right now is like their swing tackle. This other guy, Demontre Jacobs, who was a disaster, that was like a late pickup for them, is the other guy competing there. I mean, that's rough. If Morgan Moses gets hurt, who's 34 years old, like man, that is rough. They're using last year's pretty high pick Caden Wallace at guard. Supposedly the offensive line has been bad at camp so far. The one positive is their 3rd round pick, Jared Wilson, has been progressing pretty quickly, playing a lot with the starters at center, at guard, competing with Cole Strange, but also competing at center with Garrett Bradbury. And so their rookie class might be fun. A lot of Travion Henderson is wide open all the time, and Josh McDaniels cooking up special running back wheel routes down the field. So, good news for you, because I know you like Jared Wilson.
Oh, I love Jared
Wilson. I know
Wilson.
you like Travion too.
Love Jared Wilson, and they threw a lot of resources at the offensive line. To hear that they're looking thin right now is concerning, but hey, look, you got to nail a couple of blue chip guys. I think Jared Wilson's going to prove to be one of those guys.
Well, you got to be right about Will Campbell, but when I say thin, on paper, after the top 2 at tackle specifically, it's really thin. They're a little deeper at guard. And then I've mentioned it before, but Christian Barmore, who has all-pro potential and was sidelined by those blood clots last year, by all accounts has showed up and has been fantastic at camp. So that would be huge for them. Let's finish the AFC East with the Dolphins. Since we last talked, we confirmed for sure Artie Burns has a torn ACL. He was a depth cornerback piece. Kader Kohu left practice with a leg injury. He's supposed to be their nickelback. It's unsure how serious that is. And then they signed 2 guys we know, one of whom I think was in my top 101, Jack Jones and Mike Hilton, both signed contracts with the Miami Dolphins. I think I slid Hilton into the very end of my top 101, but Jack Jones apparently went out there like first day and he was like their first team cornerback and is making plays. That's the kind of situation they are. They're signing guys off the street, and he is probably their best. He might be their best cornerback, and he was available. Man, that's weird.
Unless you're buying into the Storm Duck hype, which started last preseason.
Sure.
Yeah, this is a team that can. I mean, I understand why they traded Jalen Ramsey. We knew that was basically inevitable, but for a team that just traded Jalen Ramsey, they are outrageously thin at the position right now, which is very concerning when you add in the fact that Kader Kohu left practice and they had injuries elsewhere with Artie Burns. So, I just had to look it up right now. Mike Hilton. I feel like he's been in the league forever. 31. So might be his last gasp at an NFL career, but I've loved him over the course of his many different stops in the NFL. So maybe he ends up contributing.
Started to play a little more Madden lately. And Mike Hilton, I love a good slot cornerback. I mean,
Yeah.
I love watching that in real life, but I love being the cornerback, the slot cornerback blitzing in Madden, and Mike Hilton, one of the GOATs at that. One thing I noticed this last week was this whole Tyreek Hill story. It's weird down there. Like all off season long, Tyreek Hill has been saying how he hasn't taken his career seriously enough and he hasn't been a leader. And there's been a lot of talk about the comments that he made at the end of last season in the locker room where he all but, quit on the team and didn't really express any remorse about it afterwards in Week 18. And Tua Tagovailoa was pretty real about it in front of the microphone earlier this week, saying, Tyreek's got some ground to make up, that he needs to prove it, that he's here and a leader. And he was on NFL Network Inside Training Camp this weekend, and they circled back to those comments.
But I don't feel it's me talking bad about my teammate. Kind of what you said, I'm just trying to hold him accountable because that's what we're trying to do with everybody on our team. And if this is what we say the standard is, then that's what the standard is, and nobody's exempt from it.
Spicy Tua, I like it. He's just being honest, and I think Tyreek Hill publicly has tried to take accountability. I do like seeing Tua Tagovailoa kind of in that salty leadership position, but it's just been strange vibes. Strange vibes all around.
Okay, so you know how I spoke about Aaron Glenn being the adult in the room with the Jets? I feel like the Dolphins are the reverse Jets in that they had a lot of hype around them with Mike McDaniel's arrival and the explosive offense and everything else, and they took a significant step backward last year. Obviously, to his injury, the latest concussion had something to do with it, but Tyreek had, basically his worst year in 5 years since an injury-riddled season in Kansas City. Mm-hmm. Now he's talking like this. It feels like the wheels are starting to get loose, or something about them spending so much time in the spotlight over the last couple of years, all the hype, the lack of ultimate success with this team, and the frustration. They lack an adult in the room right now, at least energy-wise outside right now, and Tua's trying to be that guy. And I respect that, but I don't know if that's going to work.
Yeah, I think it makes it clear that those comments from Tyreek Hill and how he acted at the end of last season, everyone noticed. For Tua Tagovailoa to publicly feel comfortable enough to be he's got to kind of prove it to us. To me, he's probably talking for the locker room. Now, Tyreek Hill is in a contract year. Essentially, he's going to be motivated as hell to have one last great year. He's a Hall of Famer someday. It wouldn't surprise me if he bounces back. We will see. I listened to 3 Yards Per Carry, very good Dolphins podcast. They made the comment that they thought these were the best backup quarterbacks of the Mike McDaniel era, just in terms of how they looked on the field. So a little Quinn Ewers and Zach Wilson pop. Probably going to be Zach Wilson, but apparently they're looking okay. Maybe they understand that system. You never know who's going to understand that system.
That speaks to the fact that they've watched a lot of Skylar Thompson practice reps over the last few years.
And Mike White. And fair enough though. Maybe I trust them. On the left side, Patrick Paul and Jonah Savanea are their offensive linemen. Reportedly have looked pretty good so far. And then we'll wrap up the Dolphins with Minkah Fitzpatrick. Got a new deal. But when it was first reported, it was a little misleading of how much guaranteed money he got. They just pushed most of his salary into a bonus right now and then gave him a $2 million raise. So here's a guy, Minkah Fitzpatrick, who basically wanted to get an immediate long-term deal out of the Dolphins, more guaranteed money because he's essentially up after this year, or he's going to want it redone after this year. And they didn't do it. They stood their ground, and they were like, you know what? We will give you $2 million out of the goodness of our heart. It's a lot of money. But we are not giving you the same kind of contract that Jalen Ramsey got a year ago when we didn't have to give it to him, or Tyreek Hill got a year ago when we didn't have to give him. So to me, actually, that's progress for the Dolphins. They did not get bullied into a contract from Drew Rosenthal. And if he plays great this year, then give him the contract. And supposedly he has been awesome at camp. It wouldn't shock me if we get a Renaissance Minkah Fitzpatrick year out of him this year. But he'll do it without getting some huge raise.
And I don't feel like he ever really took much of a step back in Pittsburgh either. I just think it's hilarious.
Little bit.
A little bit. But, I think it's hilarious when you look at his career arc that the place that he hated so much that they traded him, he ends up back with, and he still can't get the deal from them right now.
That's a fair point. But maybe it means that there are those adults in the room. Stop giving
Maybe not on the
contracts.
field, but in the front office.
Yes, that you don't need to. All right, let's take one more break, and we will wrap up with the AFC South. Back one more time. NFL Daily. Needed that second break because we just had to squeeze so much goodness into the first of our Sunday evening shows. Once the preseason starts, we'll start doing preseason takeaways for all the teams. But for now, we're going through all the camp reports. We will have the Hall of Fame game coming up on Thursday, not too far away. Let's get to the AFC South. No Hall of Fame game teams there.
No, but I will be at the Hall of Fame game, so keep an eye on that. NFL.com for all your coverage. Shameless plug. All right, AFC South. Let's go to the team with the guy that everybody talks about so much that I can't wait for him to get on the field because, frankly, I'm a little bit tired of talking about it. It's the Jaguars. It's Travis Hunter, who has had the busiest syllabus week in the history of training camp. The guy is going from offensive meeting to defensive meeting to figuring out if he's going to play defense in practice this day or offense in this practice the next day. Defensively, he is building some steam. He had 3 pass breakups on Sunday in what was a defensive-only practice for him, but his schedule is crazy, and his rep totals are pretty crazy. Through 4 practices, he's been on the field in 11-on-11 and 7-on-7 for 83 snaps. And he spent the first 2 practices exclusively on offense with 36 snaps, and he's played exclusively on defense over the last 2, 47 snaps, according to ESPN's Michael DeRocco. So he's getting a lot of work. He said the biggest challenge for him, which is what he said earlier this week, playbooks. Digesting the playbook, which allows him to play fast. I'm not worried about his stamina. I don't think anybody there is. But even Liam Cohen admitted it's kind of hard to figure out how to get all of this, organized to make sure Travis is processing all of this stuff and soaking it all in. So unique training camp experience for him, but that is definitely the leading story in Jacksonville, and it's overshadowing pretty much everything else. The one thing I'll add,
I'm fine with that. Overshadow away. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see him with a breakup. Apparently, there was a play earlier too that he almost dropped a potential pick 6, but that he's breaking on the ball. I mean, man, when you watch him, he's so slender in his lower half compared to most NFL players. You do wonder, but he's made it work at a level that no one has ever made it work before. So there's no reason to doubt it.
And I'm excited to see how it turns out on the field because he's a hell of a player on both sides of the ball. I think he's a better corner than receiver, but that's just my opinion. Other notes from Jacksonville. This is like best shape of my life stuff, but Josh Hines-Allen is aiming for Michael Strahan's record. And he said, quote, "I think all pass rushers should strive for that goal." Yes, you are correct, Josh. You are correct. And Jordan Lewis, veteran cornerback, turning heads. He's getting daily pass breakups in practice as well. That would be a nice little addition to their secondary if he could come through.
Yeah, we've had John Shipley on the show a few times, who writes for Jaguars on SI. Check out his work. Check out his podcast. And he said that Jordan Lewis has probably been the most consistent guy on the team in terms of making plays the entire offseason, and he transferred it. He's their number 2 cornerback, really, assuming Travis Hunter is not a cornerback. Tyson Campbell also is a guy, he reminds me of some cornerbacks just pop up every 3 years with an amazing year, and it's one of those positions where you need everything to work out right, and he's really healthy, and this could be that year for him. The only other note I really had from the week was it seems like Tank Bigsby is getting most of the first team reps over Travis Etienne. Not that they're not going to move it around, but if you were from the outside just watching, you'd think Bigsby's their 1, Etienne is their 2, and Bayshell 2, and the rookie is their 3. We'll see if that changes, but so far that's definitely a nugget I think fantasy heads are curious about.
Fantasy heads and those who like to predict trades, because Etienne doesn't pop. Keep an eye on him as teams need running backs elsewhere. Let's go to Houston next. First off, they don't have a lot of guys out there. There are a ton of guys on PUP. Yeah. Danico Autry, Tank Dell, Foley Fatukasi, Jimmy Ward, Damian Pierce, Derek Barnett, and Kurt Heinisch are all on PUP. And then we had the news of Joe Mixon on NFI with a foot injury. That's frustrating considering he had the ankle issues last year, and that limited his opportunities to play. But it also opens the door for Nick Chubb to maybe get a bit of redemption season if he has anything left in the tank. I don't believe he does, but if Mixon's off the field, Pierce is on PUP. Suddenly it's Nick Chubb and Dario Gumbawale, which means they're going to get a lot of reps. So something to definitely keep an eye on. The rest of the offensive line is taking time to gel. This is an offensive line that was bad last year, but the pads are not on yet, so I would hold off on pressing the panic button there. That's going to be a big part for that offense going into the season. And the last note, linebacker Azeez Al-Shire off to a very hot start in camp. Pick 6, pass breakup, and a tackle for loss on Saturday. He seems to be making a lot of plays. That would be good for a defense that we expect to be good this year.
Yeah, I think it's Alshire and Toto as their linebackers right now. Christian Harris, weirdly one of my son's favorite players in the entire league, just has struggled to get healthy.
He was one of my favorites coming out of Alabama, so I understand.
Yeah, and the Joe Mixon news was one of the biggest injury news items since we last did a show, that Ian Rappaport says he will be out the entire preseason, and the hope, according to Aaron Wilson in Houston, is to get him ready for week 1. But it sounds uncertain. And considering it's the same ankle/foot that bothered him last year and kept being a recurring issue, it's a big concern. We'll see about Nick Chubb. I'm hopeful, and yet I saw one practice report that was like just didn't look like the old Nick Chubb, at least not yet. And so we'll see. It'll be interesting. He'll probably play a lot in the preseason, Nick Chubb, like kind of playing for his job, what kind of role he's going to have. I don't think they'll treat him like a veteran that doesn't going to have to get any preseason snaps. So He's someone that I'll be curious to watch, because that is one thing you can tell in a preseason game is like who has juice or not. That's all. I think you'll be able to tell that. And you mentioned the offensive line, by the way. They're trying everything. So I wouldn't make any judgments there yet. They are still rotating and trying 3 different people at every position. You don't want to do that too long, but it's the first week of training camp. That's what it's for.
And they also have 2 really good edge rushers that they're facing every day, and Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. So got to take that into account as well. Tennessee, we know the news about Treylon Burks suffers a fractured collarbone. Just the latest setback in a career that has just fallen way short of first-round expectations. And it was a year, not that it's over, but it's a year in which he really needs to prove that he's worth considering keeping around. So it's a terrible
Probably
start
over,
for
though,
him.
right? I guess it's early enough in theory.
Yeah, you can come back from a collarbone and get half a season at this point. I think it's an 8-week recovery. So there's still some room, but I mean, even a shortened season, it's just really limiting your opportunities in an offense that needs weapons, that needs weapons for Cam Ward, who is throwing some picks in practice, but he's also asking the defense what went wrong and why they were able to pick him off. 3 of the 4 interceptions that he's thrown have been caught by linebacker Cody Barton, who said Cam has taken the time to talk with him to try to learn. So it's a good demonstration of a young guy trying to soak up as much as possible, as he knows the keys to the franchise are in his pocket. Speaking of other injuries, L'Jarius Sneed dealing with a new injury. It's not the quad that he dealt with last year. It's he had a cleanup of his knee, and he's not playing right now. Lloyd Cushenberry dealing with the Achilles issue. Both of them start on PUP. And then the last note, another one, kind of like the Jordan Hicks thing, linebacker Lorenzo Carter retiring. He told the team that was a surprise, so they're probably going to have to find a way to replace him. Not great vibes out of Titans camp so far.
Oh, how dare you. You're right. Some of the leftover, Lorenzo Carter is probably going to be their 4th edge rusher, 3rd edge rusher. So it's disappointing for them. It happens. There was a couple other retirements around the league of just guys who they just had enough. The game ain't in me no more. And I will push back with you on the bad vibes, if only because you have a number 1 overall pick, and then Daniel Jeremiah, our friend, and we'll have some news about Daniel Jeremiah and myself coming up soon, some behind the scenes news. He was there, and he said, they're going to say this, but there is excitement about the rookie class in terms of the receivers. So that's Chamari Dike, Erica Ayumanor, and Gunnar Helm, the tight end. They feel good about them so far. Jeffrey Simmons is back to being fully healthy. He's dominating. And then Ward, he's had some eye-popping plays. So at least you're seeing the really exciting plays. And, he's getting he's in at 5:30 a.m. every day type of treatment, according to DJ, and that he has really won over the entire organization. That means something to me. It seems like he's a mature rookie. Let's actually listen to one of his teammates, Chig Okonkwo, the talented tight end, talk about Ward.
Does he have the star power already?
Hey, he's a number 1 draft pick, man. He's shown why he is. So yeah, I mean, you see wherever he's walking around, every single person's trying to call him. So he definitely has that star power. He got that aura, as the kids would say.
Okay, wanted to use this in part, Shook, because aura is not a word I would feel comfortable using out loud. it's not my place. But I do think there is a life cycle of trendy words.
Ooh, I love this game.
And the life cycle all but ends in a meaningful or cool way the second that every corporation is using it nonstop in a tweet. And Aura has reached that point. So I feel bad for the kids, but it's too late. You have to move on.
Yeah, you guys got to find something new, and they'll find something new. They always do. It reminds me of the term swag, which was cool when I was in high school, and by the time I was out of college, it was being used to describe free gifts, swag bags, and that's when we knew it was over as well.
I mean, it's hung on a little bit. You just got to change it up a little bit. You know, if someone's swaggy now. You got swaggy P in the NBA.
Well, yeah, I guess we can get away with that one.
Let's wrap up with the Colts.
All right. Neither Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson has separated themselves so far.
I thought you were going to say neither one of them have aura. See, that would have. Daniel Jones definitely does not have aura. Anthony Richardson, I would say, does actually.
Daniel Jones dresses like he's still. Yeah. All right. I don't even go there.
Negative
the
aura.
Khakis,
Negative
man. It's
confidence.
The khakis. Yes, of course. Alec Pierce knows that he's going to have to earn his next contract this season. He doesn't expect to get one before this season starts. So, interesting thing to keep an eye on there. He's been a big play guy who has had his moments beneath the deep shot, but hasn't been super consistent. And they also have had, all these issues at quarterback, so I don't hold that against him. Offseason additions in the secondary, big thing, because they had to fire Gus Bradley last year because their defense was not good in the back end. Charvarius Ward is all over guys in camp so far, channeling his golden days from, the time when he was with the 49ers and the Chiefs before that, carrying it over to Indianapolis. Cam Bynum is also becoming a bit of a playmaker against both of these quarterbacks, which maybe is contributing to the fact that neither have separated themselves. And again, like I said before, they haven't put the pads on yet, but the offensive line has been sloppy when it comes to false starts, multiple false starts being committed in practice to the point that Shane Steichen reportedly had to light up the unit, stop practice and get in their face. Because again, pads or not, you shouldn't be committing false starts. It's one of the simplest things. Know the count. Know the snap count. Take a lap if you don't know it. So they got things to clean up. But Tyler Warren, a tight end that they invested heavily in this draft this year, has made some nice grabs. He's a guy with very strong hands who can catch passes away from his body. Maybe not in the same mold as Mason Taylor, but a guy that a lot of people obviously watched coming out of Penn State, where he drove their offense all the way to the college football playoff. He's making some plays there.
Yeah, I think it was a little underrated. When the Vikings signed the Colts interior line, everyone said, well, what a great move that was. Ryan Kelly, Will Fries goes from Indianapolis to Minnesota. That could be an issue in terms of how the Colts replace that. We will see. Reportedly, Richardson has been throwing Anthony Richardson to Tyler Warren quite a bit. They've had a nice connection, whereas Daniel Jones has not. So that's a good move by Richardson. But I don't know what Shane Steichen's doing there. He's yelling at the team. He's also getting intercepted. Did you see that one?
Oh, God, no.
I don't know why or how, but on some sort of drill, Steichen actually stepped in as the quarterback, and I think it was Ward. Someone intercepted him. It was not a good rep by Steichen, but that seems like it's kind of typical. I know it's only one day, and supposedly Richardson has had 3 pretty rough days and one good one, and Daniel Jones has been consistently not great. But on 11 on 11s, James Boyd of The Athletic were keeping track on Saturday. The two of them combined to go 9 for 28.
And that's about what I expected from this competition so far.
No, I did not. 9 for 28 is insane in July. These drills, and they could be working on other things, but this is actually where the stats kind of do help you a little bit, because if it's that bad, like offense just isn't getting done, isn't getting played. It reminds me so much of the craziest camp practice I've ever been to. I was doing a story about Frank Gore in 2017, and Andrew Luck was supposedly coming back from injury, but didn't. And he was still hurt at that point. And it was Scott Tolzien, P.J. Walker, and someone who wasn't great, who I'm forgetting about. And they couldn't complete a pass the whole practice. Like, they just couldn't do it. That was the year eventually they just got Jacoby Brissett in there, and then he was the adult in the room. But it was so dispiriting to be there for all the offensive players, because you couldn't do anything. 9 for 28 is crazy. A.D. Mitchell supposedly has had a ton of drops, which is not what you want to hear. I don't know where he even plays this year. He's their fourth guy because Pierce to me is underrated. He's a good player, but you want to see AD Mitchell improve. But bad vibes. Some of the worst vibes in the NFL, I feel like, are with the Indianapolis Colts right now.
On the offensive side, I have faith in their defense, but on the offensive side,
we don't want to end this on bad vibes.
Sour
we got your power back, Shook. It's all looking better.
Look, and I got blue lights for those of you watching on YouTube. Again, like and subscribe on YouTube. I got blue lights back here. The aura is really cooking over here.
Oh, you brought it all around. Thank you, Shook. Appreciate you. And we will be back, as I mentioned, early in the show on Monday. It's going to go up overnight Monday. We will be at Rams training camp. We will get you all the news from around the league, but we will also talk to some players, some front office guy there with the Rams. So I'm looking forward to that. All the NFC notes will be coming on Tuesday's show. And yeah, when the pads are coming on Monday, like that is the ultimate. Football is back.